Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mary Alm, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Asheville. We are glad you are here and making a joyful noise. Didn't that sound wonderful as we were gathering? Remember those? Remember that sound? Whoever you are, wherever you come from, whomever you love, you are welcome in our faith community. If you are visiting here in the sanctuary, welcome, welcome. And if you are visiting online and want to learn more about us, click on the link in the chat box. And while you're in the chat, we invite you to introduce yourself and tell us where you are watching from. And we're glad to see all of you here. Now, let us prepare for worship with this morning's centering music.
Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you lie, I will lie, beloved. Where you lie, I will lie. Where you lie, I will lie, beloved. Where you lie, I will lie. Where you lie, I will lie, beloved. Where you lie, I will lie. Where you lie, I will lie, beloved. Where you lie, I will lie. 'Cause your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. Your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine.
Good morning. It's so good to be together on this celebration Sunday. The opening words I chose, and it's also the chalice lighting, is called Nurturing Beauty by Reverend Suzelle Lynch. Our community is filled with beauty. When you open the door to greet me, that's where the beauty begins. When you share with me what's important to you, beauty is there as I listen. When we join hands to practice compassion, beauty's heart blooms like a flower. When we teach or learn or work for justice, beauty abounds, sparks joy in all. Let us light the chalice for beauty now, the beauty we seek, the beauty we share, and the beauty we nurture together. Got to light this. If you're visiting this morning and you want to stand up and tell us your name and where you're from, please do so now. Oh, look here. Microphone.
Hello, I'm James Curran. This is my wife Alma. We moved here about a year ago in Ella, and this is our first time.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, welcome. Glad you're here.
Hi, I'm Dan Stallman, and I'm from Weaverville, North Carolina. I'm sorry.
That's fine. Thank you, Dan. Good morning, Kim Roney. I'm visiting here with you again from West Asheville.
Welcome. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. This is Asher, and I am visiting from Asheville.
And my My name is Greg, and I'm visiting from Minnesota.
Minnesota, welcome. Well, thank you all. We're really, oh.
Well, I'm not a visitor, but apparently they don't want to sit up. But some of you who know me know that I am probably the only person you'll ever meet whose mother's name is Larry. Former boss is named Larry, and 2 fellow congregation members are named Larry. So please greet my family. They're on the front row there later, if you are
Welcome.
It's
Glad
my
you're
brother,
here.
my mother, my sister-in-law, and my sister.
Welcome. Well, this is kind of a crazy morning at UU Asheville, so don't judge us by this particular. We have a lot of elements going on, and it's going to be a lot of fun, I hope. And we're going to take time right now for you to rise up and greet your neighbor, or just turn around and wave. You can do an elbow bump, a smile, a wave. Oh, this is going to get out of hand. Yeah, well, yeah. Whenever. We're going to do. I'll ring the chime. Another 30 seconds. Okay, everybody. I hate to break up this beautiful, loving party. We do have coffee hour afterwards and a snack, so please stay after and continue welcoming one another. Now let us rise in body or spirit and sing together hymn number 354, We Laugh, We Cry.
We And now it's the time for all ages. The story is called Wanda's Roses. One morning in May, on the way to school, Wanda noticed a bush growing in the empty corner lot at Fillmore and Hudson Streets. It must have been growing for a while because it was about 2 feet tall, and Wanda was surprised she hadn't noticed it before. But there it was, bare and thorny, and Wanda, who loved beautiful things, felt her heart beat faster. "A rose bush," she said to herself. "My very own rose bush." Now, the rose bush really didn't belong to Wanda, but since nobody seemed to own the lot or the heaps of junk that were piled there, she decided she would care for this bush and make it her own. All during school, she thought about her rose bush. During art, she drew pictures of what it would look like in bloom. During library, she borrowed books on arranging flowers. During science, she asked so many questions about how to take care of it that finally her teacher said she really must stop asking questions about roses and start thinking about electricity, because that's what the lesson was about. After school, she rushed to the rose bush. It was still bare and thorny. Maybe it needs some more sun, thought Wanda. So she put down her school bag and began dragging some of the nearby trash out to the curb. Mrs. Turner, who was on her way to the store, stopped to help her with a broken chair. "Cleaning up the neighborhood, Wanda?" Mrs. Turner asked. "That's a nice project for you." "Oh, I'm not just cleaning," Wanda told her. "I'm helping my rose bush to get more sun so it will bloom." "Your rose bush?" Mrs. Turner asked. "Where's your rose bush?" "Over there," Wanda said, pointing proudly to the bare, thorny bush. "Oh, Wanda, I'm not so sure that's a rose bush," she said gently. "Sure it is," said Wanda. "I've seen rose bushes in books, and this is what they look like before they bloom. You just wait. In a few weeks, this lot will be full of roses." "Well," said Mrs. Turner, shaking her head, "good luck with it, Wanda." And as she walked away, Mrs. Turner thought to herself, "If that's a rose bush, then I'm the Queen of England." The next day after school, Wanda hurried to her rose bush. It was still bare and thorny. Maybe it needs more air, thought Wanda. So she put down her school bag and began taking more of the trash out to the curb. "Once I get all this trash out there, nothing will block the air from getting to my rose bush," Wanda thought. Next page, please. Oh, you got it. Mr. Claudel was on his way home from work, saw Wanda trying to drag an old door, and stopped to help. "Cleaning up the neighborhood, are you, Wanda?" he asked. "Not just cleaning, Mr. Claudel," Wanda told him. "I'm getting rid of this trash, so my rose bush will get more air." "A rose bush? Here?" Mr. Claudel asked. And so Wanda showed him the rose bush. "I don't know much about gardening, Wanda," Mr. Claudel said, frowning, "but I don't think that's a rose bush." "Sure it is," said Wanda. "And in a few weeks, this lot will be filled with the sweetest smelling roses you ever saw." She thanked Mr. Claudel for his help and went off to drag away some more trash. Mr. Claudel shook his head. "If that's a rose bush," he said to himself, "then I'm the King of France." Every day after school that week and the next, Wanda worked in the empty lot. Mrs. Giamoni, who lived in an apartment next door, gave Wanda trash bags for the old shoes, beer bottles, broken toys, and bits of glass that she was picking up. "You've done a great job cleaning up this lot, Wanda," Mrs. Giamoni told her. "Oh, I'm not just cleaning," Wanda said. "I have to get rid of all this trash so my rose bush will get enough sun and fresh air to bloom." "But where's your rose bush?" Mrs. Giamoni asked. So Wanda showed her. Mrs. Giamoni put her hand on Wanda's shoulder and spoke softly to her. "Wanda," she said, "this is not a rose bush." "Oh, but it is," said Wanda, "and in a few weeks this lot will be filled with the most beautiful roses you ever saw." "That would be nice," said Mrs. Giamoni, "but I don't want you to be disappointed if it doesn't bloom." "Don't worry, Mrs. Giamoni," Wanda answered. "I won't be disappointed." Mrs. Giamoni sighed. "That is not a rose bush and will never be one," she thought to herself. The next week, when the rose bush still wasn't blooming, Wanda talked to her school librarian. "I need some books about getting roses to bloom," she told Ms. Jones. "Oh, do you have a rose bush, Wanda?" Ms. Jones asked. "Yes, but it doesn't have flowers yet, and I know it has enough sun and fresh air." "Does it have enough water?" Ms. Jones asked. "Water," Wanda said. "Of course. That will make it bloom." That afternoon, she hurried to the rose bush. It was still bare and thorny. She looked at the dry ground and smiled. "Don't worry, little bush," she said out loud. "I'll get you some water, and then you'll be able to grow flowers." Wanda went to the butcher shop across the street. "Mr. Sanchez, would you please give me some water for my rose bush?" "Rose bush? Is that what I see you taking care of and talking to every day over there? Are you sure that's a rose bush?" Mr. Sanchez asked. "Oh, yes, I'm sure," Wanda said. "But it can't bloom because it needs water." Mr. Sanchez gave her water in a plastic bucket. "I hope that really is a rose bush, Wanda," he said, looking at her doubtfully. "You'll see," Wanda told him. "In a few weeks, that whole lot will be full of roses." As Wanda carried the water to her rose bush, Mr. Sanchez muttered, "In a few weeks, that thorn bush will still be a thorn bush." Every day, Wanda ran to her rose bush after school, but every day it was still bare and thorny. She watered it and sang to it and checked its bare branches for roses. Mr. Claudel, on his way home from work, stopped to see if there were any roses yet. Mrs. Turner, on her way to the butcher shop, stopped to see if there were any roses yet. Mrs. Giamoni, seeing Wanda in the lot, called down to her from her apartment to ask if there were any roses yet. When Wanda went to the library at school, Ms. Jones asked if there were any roses yet. And every day when Wanda went to the butcher shop for water, Mr. Sanchez asked if there were any roses yet. To each person, Wanda would answer the same thing: "Just you wait. Pretty soon, this whole lot will be filled with roses." And then, one day in June, Wanda had an idea. Looking at the bare, thorny bush, she said, "If my rose bush won't give roses to me, I'll just have to give roses to my rose bush." And when she saw Mrs. Turner, Mr. Claudel, Mrs. Giamoni, Ms. Jones, and Mr. Sanchez, she gave each of them an invitation that said, "Please come for tea and muffins in Wanda's Rose Garden Saturday morning at 9. "Oh dear," said Mrs. Turner. "Is she still expecting to get roses from that bush?" "Oh no," said Mr. Claudel, "and she's worked so hard too." "Oh my," said Mrs. Giamoni, "she'll be so disappointed." "Oh darn," said Mr. Sanchez, "there must be something I can do." "Oh good," said Ms. Jones, who had only heard about the bush from Wanda and hadn't seen it for herself. "And I'll bring the muffins." The night before the tea party, everyone was busy, and the next morning at 9, everyone was surprised to see Wanda's rose bush covered with roses. Paper roses that Wanda had made herself and carefully tied to each thorny branch. But more surprising yet, everyone who came to the party had brought along a rose bush to plant near Wanda's, except for Miss Jones, who had brought delicious blueberry muffins. After they had eaten their muffins and drunk their tea, they all got busy planting rose bushes. Mr. Claudel and Mrs. Turner dug the holes. Mrs. Giamatti held the bushes in place while Wanda and Ms. Jones filled in around the roots with soil, and Mr. Sanchez brought water from his shop and watered them all thoroughly. When the work was finished, Mr. Claudel said, "Wanda, this is going to be a rose garden fit for a king or a queen," said Mrs. Turner. Wanda and the others smiled. And later that summer, the whole lot was filled with the biggest, most beautiful, sweetest smelling roses that anyone had ever seen, just as Wanda had said it would be.
Thank you, Deborah, for that wonderful story. And thank you, choir, for all this beautiful music, especially that song, which speaks to the message of our celebration this morning. But let us just pause for a moment to honor the silences of the world, to open our hearts to the silent prayer for the healing of pain and the soft, gentle coming of love. I want to share with you a prayer of renewal. It's been a long 2 years of being apart, and we are together, and it feels so wonderful. This is written by Peter Fredericks. Spirit of life and love, ever-present source of life by which we are held and healed, we give thanks for the gift of our lives. We gather here and online, both spaces equally made sacred by our presence, to celebrate, to grieve and to mourn, to find meaning, to navigate the uncertainties and vagaries of our lives. We are blessed to be a part of this community of faith, of hope, of love and justice, and we cherish the freedom of our faith, which allows us, unconstrained by dogma and creed, to engage in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We acknowledge that this freedom asks much of us, that it comes with a price of responsibility and accountability. Our living tradition calls us to seek transformation, to be open to change, and to be actively engaged in a process of spiritual growth. We seek to embrace change and are committed to the transformation of ourselves, each other, and the world, and we are a justice-loving, justice-seeking, justice-making people, committed to the principles of fairness, equity, and inclusion. We are called to generosity in all of our relationships, knowing that at our core we are more alike than we are different, and we strive to understand, to find common ground, and overcome our differences. Our care extends beyond our human family. We are one with all the natural world, kindred souls with the very earth on which we walk. We must care for our planet and its inhabitants, especially in this time of dire need. As a free faith, it is up to us to nurture the bonds between us. We are caretakers of this fragile gift. We will serve this faith however we are able, offering our gifts of time, talent, and treasure in service to our faith in each other. And in gratitude and celebration, we give thanks for this beloved community. Let us share a moment of silence. And now it is time for acknowledging our joys and sorrows with a candle lighting ritual. If you're in the sanctuary, please feel free to come forward to light a candle. And if you're online, please write in the chat box any joy or sorrow that you would like to share with the congregation. we light one last candle for all the joys and sorrows that are held within our hearts. If you have shared a joy, we rejoice with you. And if you have shared a sorrow, know that this community will hold you in love and care.
Close my eyes and I can see a world that's waiting up for me, that I call my own. Through the dark, through the door, through where no one's been before, but it feels like home. They can say it all sounds crazy. I've lost my mind. I don't care, so I'll be crazy. We can live in a world that we desire. 'Cause every night I
It's a special day in the life of this congregation. We are being transformed. Will the new members please come forward? Just come, yeah, right along there. Okay. So these are the folks who are joining the congregation today, and they're going to bring new ideas, new desires, new energies, and new opportunities to all of us. And we're going to share our ideas, desires, and energies and projects with them. Our covenant grounds us, but it also resonates with life. As George Kimmon Beach put it, people don't join a covenanted community, rather they constitute it. There is no it without them. And each time new folks join, the whole is literally reconstituted. To remind ourselves of our center, let us welcome our new members in saying our covenant and, okay.
Is this on? I'm thrilled to invite our newest members today, which is the first new member Sunday that we've had in over 2 years. So welcome. Some of these people have actually joined while we were shut down, which is a tribute to how they want to serve our congregation and the willingness for them to be here, even though they didn't have an opportunity to learn about us while we were shut down. So I'm going to pass the mic. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and then we are going to say the covenant as a whole, and just make sure you follow the script here.
Janine Jones.
Graham.
Joanne Fox.
Freda Mango and Kurt Kratvix. Nancy Clark.
Bernice Lynch.
Jane White. Barbara Witt, and my husband George Witt is sitting up there. He's joining also.
Okay. All right. So the new members will read on your sheet of paper.
So you're going to read, yes.
The first part. And then the congregation, you will join in. Everybody will read our covenant, and everybody will read we promise to.
So, new members, I affirm my commitment
to this congregation and to its work for connection, inspiration, compassion, and justice. I enter willingly, grow, ready to serve.
Welcome to this community. We invite you to take part in all that it offers and to share us your vision, wisdom, and your dreams. Recognizing we are individuals who need one another. We stand as a community held together by the promises we make and keep. We promise to share the ministry of our congregation through gifts of time, talent, and treasure, care and support one another. Celebrate our intentional diversity with joy and gratitude. Attend to our differences and openness, compassion, and trust. Create healing by listening and speaking in the spirit of love. Be steadfast of our
strive to live our Unitarian
Universalist missions.
Congregational mission.
Our lives together declares that the future of each depends on the good of all, and the future of all depends on the good of each.
Welcome. And before you all leave, I actually have a gift.
We love gifts.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your support.
Okay, so dear ones, we welcome you to the fullness of this community. May you be nourished here. May we find nourishment in your life among us, and together may we discover the sacred space of our newly affirmed covenant. Amen. And on Celebration Sunday, we are going to celebrate our volunteers.
So in addition to celebrating our newest members, I also wanted to make sure that our established members and volunteers were recognized on this special day. This slide, the next slide, shows all of the committees, and I know it's really small. It was like one really small slide or 3 really big slides. So I'm sure you can't read it all, but just know that all of the committees and groups that require volunteers are up there, and there's a lot. And we would not be you without you. So you all do the work for us. The names of all of our volunteers are also on the slides, plus on the handout that I gave you. And I apologize if I missed anybody. I really am sorry. I tried my hardest. There are over 130 people that are listed as volunteers. I would like everybody who volunteers for our congregation to please stand, be recognized. You are the you and you. Thank you for all that you do. We would not be able to be here without the help of everybody. I love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanny. So the next part of our service is going to be a UUUU football skit. And this is a Garrison Keillor skit that I stole. Don't tell anybody. And it was a little bit politically incorrect, and so Langdon Martin, thank you Langdon, rewrote it and actually made it even funnier. So we are going to welcome the Sandburger players, and we will get started. It's good to laugh at each other. And you know, Garrison Keillor has made a career out of making fun of Unitarian Universalists.
A dark night in a city that knows how to keep its secrets. But on the 12th floor of the Acme building, one man still trying to find the answers to life's persistent questions. Guy Noir, Private Eye.
It was May up in St. Paul, Minnesota. But the weather wasn't ready to give up playing winter. One day last week, people were sitting in their backyards enjoying supper, and the next day they were sitting outdoors in their coats eating lunch, and now they're rehanging all the insulation over their doors and windows. Me, I was trying to get my radiators to give up some heat because Lou, the landlord, likes to keep the temperature down so as to maintain the tenants in a semi-dormant state. Fewer complaints that way. I was just about to head down to the 5 spot, take a swan dive into a martini, but when a man with a tie without food stains walked in. I could see by his outfit he was no cowboy. He had a nice aroma of piety and heavy tithing about him.
Mr. Noir, you're the Private Eye, right?
That's me, available for any type of detection, surveillance, expert sleuthing, you name it.
I need you to do some scouting for me.
Oh, I see. And who are you?
My name is Lucan John, Matthew M. Lucan John. I'm a member of Gethsemane Seminary and Seminar Center in Central City.
Matthew M. Lucan John, What does the M stand for?
Marvin.
Marvin. Baptist, right?
Of course, Bible-based Baptists. Hard shell, so good at football. And football has always been very important at Gethsemane, Mr. Noir. We're a scripture-based football team. For example, we don't use shoulder pads because they're not mentioned anywhere in Scripture. And in the old days, if a man fumbled the ball, we turned him into a pillar of salt. We don't do that anymore. All though we think about it.
That must make the recruiting very difficult among the secular players.
Oh, yes. But this week, we're going to be playing our big game against AEIOUU, the Asheville, Edwin Street intramural overachieving Unitarian Universalists. The Thoreau Emersonian Sandburgers, if you please. And something is up, Mr. Noir. The volume of betting on this game is off the charts. Thousands of dollars have been wagered on this game. But AEIOUU hasn't won a game since consolidation in 1961.
Well, Unitarians aren't exactly a football powerhouse, are they? I mean, the bloodlust among them is fairly minimal, right?
They don't care about football at all. They don't even bother to work up plays. They just stand around in a huddle arguing. And then they go out off in all directions. I want you to go down there and see if they have something sly up their smarmy sleeves.
I see. I get your drift. Asheville, you say? Now, I think the best thing for me to go head down there and scout them out. Where do you think I should try to watch them practice these AEIOUUs?
Sometimes at the Y.
Should have known. Don't worry, Mr. Lucan John, surveillance is my middle name.
Glad to hear it. This is an important game. Do I make myself clear? If we, Bible-loving folk, fail to thump a creedless chorus of Cretans back to the creation, well then, after a lot of prayer, we may have to go to Notre Dame for some holy water and incense.
The next day, down in Nashville,
I was away from my normal martinis, but I wasn't above trying a craft brew instead. I found the AEIOUU football team at the Y, lying on the grass around a campfire. They were a delicate, tender people, gentle like the soft posies, softly springing in the sunny southern city. There wasn't much killer instinct there. The tackling dummies had flowers wrapped around them, and the team was a democracy. Everyone got equal playing time.
Hey, you've played 7 minutes as quarterback. Let me have a turn.
Hey, now, don't chase all those rabid raccoons off the field. They're part of the interdependent web of life, you know.
I watched them for a while just to scout them, but then I found myself starting to root for them. Sure, they were a little quirky, maybe a little too woke and politically correct for my taste, but they made me feel like I had worth and dignity. I couldn't say that about Luke and John. I decided to offer them some advice. Excuse me, persons. You know, I'm an outsider here, but do you mind if I give you a little advice? Look, I know you've got a big game next week against God's warriors from the Gethsemane Seminary. Those guys are Goliaths. Have you ever heard the word win? These fundamentalist fanatics, they've been eating your lunch for years, and it's time to hit them hard, get out there and fight for moderation.
Is this going to involve violence?
Look, didn't anybody teach you about domineering and dominating the line of scrimmage and showing people who's boss? You've got to show these guys that humanists are not pushovers.
Well, some of us are, actually.
I left sure of one thing. There was no powerful will to win among the AEIOUUs at the Y or elsewhere. Their team was out just to have sort of an interesting football experience and then have a post-game discussion about it. So I did what any normal person would do. I called up my bookie, Bernie, and put all my money down on the Gethsemane team to win by 7 points. The day of the game arrived, and I heard Luke and John exhorting his team on the sidelines.
All right, you guys, we're down here in Asheville. It's been a long trip, and we're out of our comfort zone of 30 degrees below zero. And no one is going to push us around. After all, we just got off the Billy Graham freeway, right? Right? We're going to win. Win. As God's warriors, we fight the fight of the righteous. We will smite them, pummel, punish, smash, mash, trounce, tromp, beat, bash, crush, and spank them. That's what I'm talking about.
While on the other sidelines,
Give me an A if you want to. Give me an E if you're comfortable with that. Give me an I if you consent.
if it's in line with your system of belief. Give me a U unless you have to go to a meeting. Give me another U unless you have to vote on it first. Yay!
So they got out there and they mixed it up, almost. I had never seen so many delay of game penalties. Every time the AEIOUs got into a huddle, they split into a subcommittee and before putting up the play to a vote. Even still, the game was surprisingly close. The Gethsemanes had trouble handling the vegan leather football that the AIOUs had provided, and they weren't used to tackling players wearing those soft, organic, non-GMO cotton uniforms. And the ref was not a real by-the-letter rule follower, so the Gethsemanes had to limit to the 11 players on the field, but the AEIOUers sometimes had 15 or 20 players comprising different gender identities, so that allowed them to overwhelm them by sheer numbers. And in the closing minute of the game, the Unitarians were down by just a field goal, and they called a timeout.
All right, the game's not over. Whose turn to be quarterback? Julie, you're on. What do you say?
Dear Lord, I've never played quarterback, but I pray now that you might give me this opportunity to prove your glory, and that I might throw the ball as well as I throw fundraiser. Amen.
I'm sorry, was that a prayer?
Yeah.
Well, what's with all the religiosity? Are you genuflecting? How could you do that?
It's okay. I did it freely and responsibly. And I was nervous and I thought it might help.
And at that moment, a mighty wind whipped across the field.
Huddle up, huddle up. I'm going to throw a Hail Mary Oliver.
The quarterback threw the ball and it was carried on the wind, and Rev Kathy caught it and ran into the end zone, and lo and behold, the AEIOUs had won the game. After the game, Luke and John stood lost and bewildered on the sideline.
I'm a broken man, Noah.
It could be worse, Mr. Luke and John.
How? What just happened?
My bookie Bernie says that the Unitarians bet a whole bunch of their annual budget on the game, and they bet against themselves. Apparently they got a crooked business manager who's trying to set up for a cushy retirement. I don't know what her name is, but anyway. And but see, here's the thing: the Unitarians, they didn't care. They were happy that they won. They were feeling no pain. I wouldn't be surprised though if this year each and every one of them gets asked to increase their pledge again.
A dark night in a city that knows how to keep its secrets, but one man is still trying to find the answers to life's persistent questions. Guy Noir, Private Eye.
It's good to laugh. It's good to laugh. Please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. Hymn number 1008.
Our announcements run as slides at the beginning of the service. If you missed them, just refer to Thursday's weekly e-news as everything is described there. Our community plate recipient this month is CoThink. Today we have a video by their executive director, Tracy Green Washington.
Good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be with you virtually. Looking forward to being with you in person in June. We're so honored at CoThink to be a recipient of your community plate. One of the things that we know about that particular award is that it is all about building relationships with one another, with community groups, and honoring the work that they're doing and shoring them up in a significant way. My name is Tracy Green Washington. I'm the founder of CoThink, along with a slew of other collective and collaborative members that have been a part of birthing who CoThink is. We are a social change philanthropy that's structured as a giving circle. And what that means is that we center those that are directly impacted by these vexing social issues. We honor the lived experiences of those that are impacted. We lead from an equity lens, particularly racial equity lens, and we focus on innovation as well as systems change work. We are a collective of individuals that identify and are leading this work that identify as Black, Latinx, African American, BIPOC, and we're supported by allies. Many of you may be also in the congregation right now. One of the things I wanted to just emphasize is that CoThink was birthed out of this idea of how do we create intentional space for leaders of color that are doing some amazing work to have lift to their work and be able to have a voice in terms of the investments as well as the discussions and discourse that they'd like to have as they move forward. Really quickly, we do our work through 4 strategic pathways. You've probably heard that from the information that was already provided. Healing through our monthly meetings and support to one another in hard conversations. Through capacity building, both through our investment in communities, but also in our relationships to shift organizations and institutions to have more equitable practices in their grant making. Also, we focus on capacity building, which is our leadership development work as well as our coaching support that we provide through our national partner, Coach Diversity Institute. And lastly, we focus on systems change, which is about shifting mental models, policies, practices, relationships flow, as well as relationships in our community as well. To date, we've given out close to $400,000 from community to community. And last year, we had the opportunity to extend support to 29 organizations with investment of $116,000. That investment, coupled with our support around self-care grants, as well as building the capacity of leaders to be coaches themselves and provide 6 hours of coaching support through our Coach Diversity Institute national partner, is a culmination of a lot of work and a lot of support that we want to continue to do as we move forward. And so as I sit here today with you, I have a couple of asks to thank you, number one, for investing in us. Your investment as a part of Solidarity is critical and is needed, not only for us, but other organizations that are doing this work in Asheville and Western North Carolina. I also ask when I come next month that we have a conversation about CoThink and also how we build and continue to collectively partner to build equitable, healthy relationship with one another, as well as other organizations that are working in community as well. Again, thank you for this opportunity. On behalf of CoThink, on behalf of our membership, on behalf of our grantees, we appreciate your support. We're looking forward to partner and looking forward to being with you in the congregation next month as well. Take care. Blessings.
These words are from Peter Reibel. This congregation is a community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. When we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm our lives within it. For the gifts of your time, talent, presence, and financial support, we are grateful. Thank you.
Before I do a closing words, I just want to thank the Sandburger players. They were wonderful. Our wonderful tech team up there in the corner. They stay on the sidelines, and yay, we love you. And Les and the choir. Thank you for the beautiful music. It's been a big day of celebration and welcoming new members and honoring our volunteers. These are important times, and it's joyful when we recognize the changes that we go through, the journeys of growth that we're on, and the commitments that we make to our community and to ourselves that support us and challenge us and give us heart along our journey. So when you plant your seeds that you received today, and if you didn't get any, there may still be some out there, they're flowers, nourishing beauty. Reflect on what commitments that you want to make yourself, to your family, to the congregation, and to our community. And maybe take a piece of paper and write it down. Make it a symbol of your commitment. In this way, the legacy of the past that comes into our today nourishes the dreams of our future. And as a community like Wanda and her rosebush, we gather together and help one another create and nourish beauty. We must create safe places and containers to honor the deep work that we do. We need to remember, to reflect, to hope, and connect in order to continue to nurture our commitments, because we cannot do this alone. We are all in this together, and I want to say a special thank you to all of you who contribute to the life of this congregation. Even just being here this morning gives us all energy and enthusiasm. And so those who seek God, may God go with you. And for those who seek a better path, may a way be found and the courage to take it. And for those who embrace life, may life return your affection. Go in peace and blessed be, although we have, if you're online, following the postlude, you're invited to linger and join us for conversation and virtual connection using the Zoom link. If you're here in the sanctuary, please join us for coffee hour and conversation. And now let us sing our closing song, Longtime Son. Please rise and body your spirit and hold your hands.